outs. Ooh, now it tells us it's recording. So you guys need to like make sure that you're okay being recorded, apparently. Mr. Drew is waiting on his tech and it's going to pop up. Don't you worry. So here's a couple things I want to give shout outs on. Number one, you guys, I don't know if you guys have been on social media lately, but you guys are telling your story really, really well. I am seeing, so like in the past, like maybe 6 months ago, there would be like 3 people that like I would see on social media. And now I see like everybody posting success stories on social media, posting just like just everyday experiences. And it's really, really, really good because you stay top of mind. That's like never happened before at the volume level it's happening now. So I really, really thought it was awesome. And then let me give you stats that are happening here in Texas. Number one, we have 84 agents right now, 84 agents. We have 70 listings among these 84 agents. We have 352 buyers among these 84 agents. So let me tell you, I mean, I'm not that great at math, but what is that? Like 420 clients between 84 agents? That's a lot of clients, you guys. Right now, these 84 agents have 262 pendings, 262 pendings. And that is an average price point in the pending department that you guys are working on. That is 412,000 as your average, 412 as your average in pendings, ridiculously high. You guys have closed 417 this year. And it's like 147 days into the year, give or take, right? So that is 3 per day. You guys are closing 3 homes per day in Texas right now. That's like, to quantify it, that's probably like top 5 in Texas, okay? Across all brokerages, everything. 150 million closed. Your average price point right now on closings is 360,000. So just think about what the market is doing. Average close price is 360. Average pending price is 412. Like, that's a big gap. And that's just like the market going up. You guys have closed 4.2 million in gross commission income, 4.2 million. That is over $2 million paid to our agents. And a couple of shout outs. Number one, I'm going to give a shout out to Sarissa's team and, I'm going to mute somebody. Sarissa's team and Dana Ramey's teams over there in Dallas and Ellis County. You guys have hit the 1 million mark. Everybody should know that they have closed 1 million plus. There are like 1.1 million now. GCI, and then Austin, San Antonio, Dripping Springs, and Houston, our little mega little team over there. Congrats on 2 million that you just hit this week. So lots of big numbers coming up, and everybody else is coming up too. So it's pretty exciting. Let me share one thing with you while Drew is coming on. Let me know if you can see my screen. I know it's kind of crazy, but there's one thing that I want you to actually see, which is this thing right here. Ooh, it's kind of blurry if I do this, but you can see it pretty fine. This is annual income of realtors by experience. This is from 2020. So this was last year, you guys. And this is from the National Association of Realtors. So when I just said that we had 4.2 million in GCI closed, you guys, and over 2 million paid to our agents, check out the income levels of most realtors. Like, check out this one, all realtors, income before taxes and expenses, right? Like to be like, if you're earning 75,000 or more, look how few people are doing that. Do you see that? If you're earning 100,000 or more, look how few people are doing that. The median income last year for an agent was 43,300, right? I'll shoot this out to everybody, but I just wanted you guys to see like how awesome you guys are doing by plugging into the systems and by coaching and doing all the things you're doing. Like, it actually matters. You're far above the average, far above the average. So just wanted to give you guys shout outs. Next week, we have Valencia hosting, and she is our guest host next week. I'm going to be on vacation. So that's going to be one you don't want to miss. If you don't know Valencia, she is really, really good at scripting, like she would take me down kind of scripting. So I'm very excited for Valencia. And then tomorrow, put this on your calendar. If it's not on your calendar, Chris Suarez has his regular all partner call with Chris Stewart, the new president of Place. And I really, really want you guys to get to know him and his vision of where the real estate industry is going and why the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway would leave a company of 55,000 agents and come work with us and lead our company, right? So I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be good. So that's all I got for you this morning. And we'll see if Drew is on. Drew, are you on? Maybe not. Maybe we'll improvise, you guys. I think we can improvise. Somebody tell me something that's going on in your life. Something good while we're improvising.
I see Drew.
Oh.
You're here? Where? Tell me.
Checking the audio right now.
Ooh. Hey, whoever said that, was that first Laura? Are you the winner?
Yeah, that was me.
Well, you are the winner. I love it. I love it. I love it. You are such a winner, Laura. So I'm super excited to introduce you guys to my friend over here. Drew, can you hear me pretty good? We're almost there. All right. Whenever he can hear me, he will tell me he can hear me. We'll work on that. Meanwhile, let's do for like 2 seconds. Give me 3 people you want to brag on. 3 people that went out of their way this week that you want to brag on the team. Anywhere in Texas. While Drew is getting his text started.
Yes, I think we finally have this. This is the truth of what could go wrong will go wrong.
Who did we start the call with, like, somebody not being able to unlock the door when they were doing previews, right? Like, things just go wrong, but how you respond to it makes all the difference, right? Okay, well, hold your thought for bragging, and let's go on to our Mr. Speaker. I wanted to introduce you guys to Drew Lee, and if you guys have been on social media at all, like, you would see that Drew is he's been a powerhouse for a long time. When did we meet, Drew? Do you remember?
We met when you became when they were smart enough to hire you as a team leader and bring you to Oklahoma.
Good old Oklahoma days, you guys. Anybody here ever live in Oklahoma? Anybody ever travel to Oklahoma? I mean, you could, like, take a tax deduction and go visit Drew anytime. That would be fun. So we met in Oklahoma and I was the team leader, and Drew, you were coaching. Like, you've been coaching as long as I've known you, right?
Yes, I was coaching at the time. I think I just stopped doing Bold and just gotten off the road when you came over and just kind of came with some fire and brought it to the state. Well,
we like to, like, break records, and we're still trying to do that in Texas, and we've got some really, really good people breaking records here. You guys, Drew you have kids too, right?
Mm-hmm. Three children, and when we first met, I had none, so we decided to wait really late in life, and now I have twin 6-year-old boys and soon to be a 3-year-old daughter.
I love that. That's a lot of our stories here, right? Like, when we first got to know each other, we didn't have kids, and now we've got kids, we've got bills, we've got a lot of stuff. So it becomes even more important to play this game right? To have both a financial thermostat that's high, and also, have a career and a life worth having, right? And so I love that. Drew, if you guys, he and his wife also have a team in Oklahoma. It's important for you guys to know for your Oklahoma referrals. What areas do you serve, Drew?
Oklahoma City, Edmond, and pretty much every little podunk town that you've never heard of around Oklahoma City and Edmond.
All right.
My wife will drive to places, and I'm like, where is that?
Yeah, you just take out like a radius and go like about 60 miles, and then that's pretty much your area of Oklahoma City. So, guys, I'm super stoked because Ben chose to partner with Drew. Drew was a coach for Keller Williams for a very long time, one of the highest in demand. Just a good guy, though. Like, not, you know, like I know you're certified in a million things, but what I want our people to hear as you start talking to us this morning, he's just a good, normal guy like you and me who has tapped into systems and models and mindsets that have gotten him and the people he coaches to different levels. So I just want you guys to have that filter and that bias as you're going in. This isn't a guy coming in a suit and, you know, trying to tell us how to do something better. This is a guy who's just real, and he is just here to help us. Drew, whatever you want to talk on, I mean, really the floor is yours.
Well, I was going to say, you know, so I moved to Oklahoma. I lived in South Texas. I actually sold in the Corpus Christi area. That's where I started real estate back in 2003. And then I helped successfully launch the Keller Williams Market Center down there. And then I decided to get crazy, probably the same way you did from Tennessee. And let's go be a team leader. Let's go do this. Go change the world. Gonna go be a team leader. And similar, you know, I moved to Oklahoma, and I was just a little ahead of you on this. So I moved to Oklahoma and became a team leader for one whole year. And fortunately, I think I resigned on my 366th day. And at that time, Mo Anderson was kind enough to give me an opportunity and go down to Austin, Texas to meet Diana, who had just written this really cool program called Bold. And when I say she had written it, it was on a bunch of yellow pads, and she was the only one that knew what she was teaching. So we went from yellow pads to actually building this entire program out, learning it. It was a cool experience. And then I got to meet you coming in, and a new team leader, new set of ideas, fresh, with the Oklahoma mentality that tends to build brick walls. I knew I struggled with it of, why do you think this way? I mean, the world is an abundant place. There's abundant opportunities. We can accomplish anything. We can do anything. We've got bold mentality. You know, you've got the mission statement of careers worth having, business worth owning, and then you've got slow down. Let's put it in a box. Keep it small. Yeah, you can do anything. You can do it if you just keep it in the confines of our normal way of thinking. And I remember seeing Adelina it was at Huntington Beach, and it was in a break, and it was at Huntington Beach and Spring Masterminds, and I think I'd just gone for a run on the beach, and I came back, and you were sitting there with a couple people and discussing your fascination with, you know, the way leadership thought and the way people think in that area. And I was just like, yep, I can absolutely empathize. And I knew early on that Adelina and I thought very similar. So for me, it was, yeah, one of two things are going to happen. She's going to blow it up, or she's going to blow something else up. And in that case, ended up being twice. Blew up and then moved to Texas and started something that's now just been, you know, an incredible journey. So it's been really fun to kind of go all of these weird circles and then finally go and place myself.
That, you know, life is like that, right? All of us here we're all kind of strangers, but over the years, we all become very interconnected. Like the reason that I got to know Jordan was because I went to Amplify, right? The reason, like I saw her on stage, we were on stage together, but we didn't know each other yet, right? Sarissa, we sent referrals. Laura, we met in a cab, right? Like, I mean, it's like, that's what life is. And that's what life is for all of us. So we're all on this journey of just doing better.
So you said something yesterday, and, you know, as Place grows, and now we have this, you know, massive announcement with Chris joining us from Berkshire as with Place and the new, you know, basically the president, and Ben and Chris bringing him over. It's like a lot of changes. And you said the statement, you said, you know, some of us, not you, just some, you know, some team members, some of us, we're going to ask that question, what's the end game? You know, where is this going? As you know, you've heard rumor mills and rumblings of, for example, the Keller Williams and KWX going public, and you've got a lot of companies going public, and you've got a lot of mergers and acquisitions. I truly believe we're going into a very diverse merger and acquisition phase in business in general. You tend to see that. You tend to see businesses fracture. They diversify. They go a lot of different directions, and then they culminate and they come back together, and they'll reconnect. You see that in most industries. I think we're seeing that in the real estate industry of this merger acquisition phase. So it's all right. The natural question would be, well, what's the end game? Where is this taking us? So I gave that some thought, and I said, I got really fascinated about 2.5 years ago, prior to 2020, and I got really fascinated in businesses that their existence had almost defied business logic. Their existence, basically, they were game changers. So I started writing a book, and the book was going to be about longstanding businesses and how do you build one. Ultimately, how do you turn business into legacy? And it starts with how you think about it. And I remember making a statement as I was typing. Now, I was really deep into the book. I mean, I had written so much at that point in time. I was on page 1, paragraph 1. That's how, just so you get an idea, that's how far I'd gotten into this grand masterpiece. Page 1, paragraph 1. And I said a statement, and I'll never forget, because I wrote it, and I said, there are structures, there are pyramids, there are skyscrapers, there are architecture that has lasted for thousands of years. Name a business that's lasted for 1,000 years. I can't think of one. Period. Keep typing. And as I was typing, that statement kind of kept coming back, and almost to the point of haunting. I said, that was a very arrogant statement. I don't know that to be true. That seemed a little cocky to me. Let me go back and let me just do some, as anyone would do. You go to Google. And I typed in longest businesses in history, businesses that have lasted thousands of years. I started doing all this searches. Well, it turns out that was a very arrogant statement. It was entirely incorrect. I just couldn't think of a business that had been around for more than 1,000 years. Apparently, there were actually 16. Wow. 16 businesses that have lasted longer than 1,000 years. Now, ownership has changed hands. Some of them have been merged and acquired. Some of them have moved. Some of them have been generationally owned businesses. If you look in Guinness Book of World Records, there's a hotel in Japan. It's actually like, if you've ever been to Hot Springs, Arkansas, well, this would be the equivalent in Hot Springs, Japan. It's a place called Nishimaya Onsen. It's a Japanese bathhouse. It's been around since, I want to say, over 1,400 years. 52 generations have worked, owned. Some of the workers' families generationally have lived there, worked there, and it's a place you can still go stay today. So what is it that makes businesses that have been around for longer than 1,000 years, or in some cases, the United States, they've been in business longer than the United States has been in existence? What is it that separates them from anywhere else? So that topic of, well, what's the end game, or what's the end in mind? The question itself says, okay, well, why does there have to be one? Are we playing the infinite game, or are we playing the finite game of that there is an end game in mind? I'm a believer at the end of my core that, one of our bold laws was purpose of business is to fund the perfect life. I like to openly say that's not something I've struggled with. I'm very, very clear of I'm in business today to fund the perfect life. That's the whole point. And what's stopping us from thinking generationally about the purpose of business is to fund the perfect life for generations to come. So I found it was interesting for me, and this was just something I was doing for research. It just happened to be, I'm an avid reader. I like to read when I run. It distracts me of the chore of actually running because I don't enjoy it. So the way to distract myself is I started listening to audiobooks, and I still am not a big fan of running. I still am able to distract myself heavily and say, oh, I wasn't running, I was reading. I just happened to now be dripping in sweat and just put 3 to 4 miles underneath the tires, underneath the shoes. still don't enjoy it, get a lot of audiobooks done, get a lot of reading done that way. Well, it just so happens prior to the COVID and everything that happened in 2020, I'd read 2 books, and I was just having to reading them at the same time. By pure coincidence, they came on the top of my shelf. I wanted to read, as a coach, I wanted to read a book from a world-class coach. I wanted to read one a month. I so happened to pick this month, this was the month of January, I picked Pete Carroll's book called Win Forever. Really recommend it, great book. At the same time, we were leading into family reunion. Everyone was talking about this book. You got to read it. Simon sent it because he's going to be the guest speaker, called The Infinite Game. And there was a little irony that I'm working to write a book on the world's oldest businesses, the difference between why a business succeeds and why one fails. And at the same time, I happen to be reading 2 books. One says Win Forever, and one says The Infinite Game. So what happens when you combine those 2 philosophies and you put them together while asking the question, well, what's our end game? I'm going to say, well, what if we stop looking at it that way and we realize there doesn't have to be an end game? If you have a philosophy that says we're going to win forever, then you're going to live, work, and play like a champion. Meaning there is no end game. What is funding your perfect life? And more importantly, what is funding the lives of generations to come with your business being the vehicle? As I've coached professionals over the years, especially those with children, and they have this exit strategy in mind, it's often been said that I will ask, okay, so when did you start being so selfish? Which is not a popular question and is normally not well received. But when they have children, I just ask, okay, is this something that they're deciding as you say, hey, I got 5 more years left in the business, and I'll speak for myself. If I said I have 5 more years left in this business, I'm going to grow up for the next 5 years, and I'm going to walk away. Well, my sons will be 11, my daughter will be 8, and I kind of look at, well, the purpose of business is to fund the perfect life. So I should kind of ask them, hey, do you see an interest in this? Because I need to grow it to a point where passing the baton, generational legacy, generational wealth, generational business, and then they get to decide, hey, I don't want that thing. I mean, I kind of already know what's going to happen. I'm going to build this business, work my tail off, and I'm going to get to a point where the baton is going to be golden. I'm going to reach to hand it out, and one of my sons is going to say, no, I want to be an artist, or, I want to join the military, and my daughter's going to be like, I don't know. I don't want it. I watched what you did. So then we're going to be left holding the baton for a business that no one's going to want. At least in my mind, I've prepared myself to hand it to them and have a philosophy of winning forever and playing an infinite game. So this is for Pete Carroll. It's just a philosophy or a way of life. One of the questions he asks is, who's your competitor? Who's your fiercest competitor? We are in a highly, highly competitive business today. And what competitive edge do you have? How can you beat your competition? So who is our biggest or fiercest competitor? Who would you say it is?
Zillow.
Zillow. Who else? What makes Zillow our fiercest competitor?
They are able to have more eyeballs than we're able to have.
Which we literally pay them to do.
Literally.
It's the most brilliant business plan on the planet, is how can you get the very people you're working to usurp to pay for their own extinction in some ways.
We have other questions, like other people said discount brokers, others said Redfin, others said ourselves, others said me yesterday and me tomorrow.
What about FedEx? What about Amazon?
Nobody said anybody outside of the industry.
What about Google? Because you think about what is programming the way people operate today in this instantaneous, I want it now. So when people call, we text, we email, we do these things. You've got a company that can deliver a package in 24 hours, sometimes the same day, that you can jump online and order. You've got a search that when you put it in, you instantly have all of these results, recommendation, reviews, and it's instantaneous. And then the real estate agent is forced to be in a space with the consumer saying, I want it and I want it yesterday. I should be able to have it. And then any delay in what we're doing, why isn't the appraisal coming in? Where is it? It was ordered 5 minutes ago. Why aren't they already over here? If it were on Google, it would be done. You look at business today, and this is our competitor. It's the job anyone else is doing, or more importantly, it's the job we could be doing, which becomes our fiercest competitor. It's not that Zillow is not a competitor. I'd like us to think of Zillow as a worthy rival because they push us to do the best job we possibly could. Are we approaching them from that lens? The philosophy of Win Forever is just an approach. It's a team-based approach that allows us to sustain high-level championship performance over a record-breaking period of time. So what if there was no end in mind? What if we were playing an infinite game? Win Forever and the infinite game actually kind of go hand in hand of what's your long-term or your infinite strategy on building a business. See if this plays and you can hear it. Game we're playing. Game work. For life. Can you hear it? For love. Whichever one you want or all of them. In game theory, there are two kinds of games. There are finite games and there are infinite games. A finite game is defined as known players, fixed rules, and an agreed upon objective. Baseball. We all agree what the rules are, and at the end of 9 innings, whoever has more runs, we declare the winner, and the game is over. No one ever says, wait, if we can just play 3 more innings, I know we can come back and win. Doesn't happen. Right? You have winners and you have losers. Right? Then there is an infinite game. An infinite game is defined as known and unknown players. The rules are changeable, and the objective is to keep the game in play, to perpetuate the game. When you pit a finite player versus a finite player, the system is stable. Baseball is stable. When you pit an infinite player versus an infinite player, the system is also stable. The Cold War was stable because there can be no winners and losers. It doesn't exist. That's not a scenario we want. And so you keep the game in play to keep it stable. And in an infinite game, because there are no winners or losers, what happens is players drop out when they run out of the will or the resources to play. And then they're replaced by other players. The game perpetuates. The players change out. Problems arise when you pit a finite player versus an infinite player. Because the finite player is playing to win, and the infinite player is playing to stay in the game. And the finite player will always get frustrated. They will find themselves in quagmire. This was the United States and Vietnam. We were fighting to win. They were fighting for their lives. This was the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. They were fighting to beat the Mujahideen. The Mujahideen would fight for as long as was necessary. Now, let's look at the game of business. The game of business is, by its very definition, an infinite game. It has pre-existed before every single company on this planet ever existed, and it will outlast every single company on this planet. But if you listen to the words of most companies, they don't know the game they're in. You listen to companies, they want to be number one. Based on what metrics? Based on what time frame? Revenues? Market share? Square footage? Number of employees? Based on a quarter, a year? 5 years? 10 years? 50 years? I didn't agree to those standards. You can't simply just arbitrarily say we're number one. No one else agreed to the standards. It's nonsense to beat our competition. Based on what? And they study their competition, trying to outdo their competition. And yet I've never heard of a company that's taken down by the competitors they know. They're always taken down by the competitors they don't know. Do you think MySpace knew that Facebook existed? They were worried about Friendster. You can't make strategic decisions from studying your competition. You can make tactical decisions from studying your competition, but not strategic decisions. But when you listen to the way most companies play the game, they're in the wrong game. That's why they get frustrated. The great organizations understand that they're playing to stay in the game. Jim Senegal, the founder of Costco,
says Wall Street's in the business of making the quarter of the year. We're in the business of building a company for the next 50 years. The understanding of knowing what game you're in radically changes the kinds of decisions you make and the way you see the world. It is also tremendously confidence building. Let me give you a true story. I spoke at a education. That's funny. I spoke at an education summit for Microsoft. I also spoke at an education summit for Apple. At the education summit for Microsoft, I would say that 70% of the executives spent about 70% of their presentations talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Education Summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One is playing this way, and one is playing that way. One is playing finite, and the other one is playing infinite. Guess which one gets frustrated? So at the end of my talk at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zune when it was a thing. And let me tell you, this thing was spectacular. It was the most elegant piece of technology I'd ever used. The user interface was incredible. The design was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. It was easy to use, and it was bright and gorgeous. And it didn't work on iTunes, which is a different problem. I couldn't use it, but it was amazing. And elegant. My God, it was elegant. So I'm sitting in the back of a taxi with a very senior Apple executive, sort of employee number 12 kind of guy. And, you know, I like to stir pots. So I turned to him, I said, you know, Microsoft gave me their new Zune. And it is so much better than your iPod Touch. And he turned to me and he said, I have no doubt. Conversation over. Because the infinite player understands sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind. Sometimes your product is better and sometimes it's worse. The goal isn't to be the best every day. The goal isn't to outdo your competition every day. That's a finite construction. If I had said to Microsoft, I've got the new iPod Touch and it's so much better than your Zune, they would have said, can we see it? What does it do? React, 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 react. Finite players play to beat the people around them. Infinite players play to be better than themselves.
Gotta love the way we're doing technology today. So which game are you playing? Some of the highlights of this were, you know, where is our focus? Are we focused on the next quarter? Are we focused on the month? Are we focused on the week? Or are we focusing on the long-term view? What's 3 to 5 years look like? What's the future look like? What's my long-term vision look like? What's my vision board say? How many of you still do vision boards? I haven't done one in a while.
Oh, Jennifer Velarde does a vision board for sure. Right on.
I looked back, my wife and I did a vision board years ago, and we had taken time, and that's the thing, it just takes some time. We did a vision board years ago, laid it all out, didn't have kids at the time. I don't even think we were married at the time, and had all this cool stuff on there. We had a pontoon boat, we had this cabin, lake, scuba diving. There was a couple there that was I remember seeing it. They were prepared to get married. There were, and we had a couple children on this vision board, and I think there's everything. I think everything was accomplished that was on that vision, or the way we saw things shaping out, except for one. I never achieved the chiseled, almost like Mr. Universe body that I had put on there, and then I'd cut my head out and stuck it on top. That was the only thing that didn't happen. But 3 children. Our place at the lake looks almost identical to that cabin. We have a boat. We have all of these things as a result of just looking further into the future, not focusing on just the profits, focusing on what will this do? What's the greater long-term impact? And if we're too focused on winning by beating our competition, ask yourself, well, who's the competition? So 5 essential practices to the infinite game. If you've not read this, I highly suggest this. This is just a phenomenal book. Same author of, Starting with Why. It's what's the just cause? What are we in business to do? The dream of home ownership, delivering the dream of home ownership everywhere. That's still the American dream. The idea. I was in the Verizon store last week, and I was getting a new phone because mine was it was finally dead. I couldn't resuscitate it anymore. I had done the clear, and brought it back to life as many times, and it was done. And then the gentleman across was 24 years old, and he was talking to his coworker saying, I don't know if there's enough money we're going to ever be able to save up based on what's happening for us to become homeowners. I'd like to be a first-time home buyer. I just don't want to be a first-time home buyer when I'm 50. So it's what's the game we're in. We're in a worthy cause. We have a just cause of delivering the dream of home ownership everywhere. That's a just cause. So how do we do it? Well, we build trusted teams. We study who are worthy rivals. So you can look at Zillow and say, Zillow's beating us. So what? We're beating Zillow. So what? But what's the infinite game where we're not looking at them? We're looking at what we're doing. That's one of the things that makes Place so unique is we're playing a game that's never been played. It's an entirely new board. We're flexible, and we've got great leadership with the courage to lead. And the short game will likely end up with only short gains. Aim for the infinite game. It's not about long-term or short-term profits, a long-term, building a community. You can read, I'm not going to just go through each one of those. Just ask yourself, am I thinking what's the end game, or am I asking what's the infinite game? How far does this go into the future? How far could it go? Could we be talking about Place in our organizations and our sales teams and individually what we've done for 1,000 years to come? Is that possible? Well, the last I checked, real estate has been sold and it's been bought, it's been acquired, it's been transferred for well into the thousands and thousands of years. Ever since governments in individual countries started allowing landowners to own a portion of that land, well, real estate became something that was transferable. It became a service. What we do is we help people that put one into the other. I like to say, we help pretty people buy pretty homes. Pretty people buy ugly homes. Ugly people buy pretty homes. Ugly people buy ugly homes. We just put the people into the houses, and we help them with their real estate needs. So if we're going to offer this great level of service, do we believe in ourselves? Do we believe in the long term? Do we believe in creating peak experiences? And just for the sake of time, I'm going to share this, and I'll send this to Adelina. You're more than welcome to share this. Think of what game are we actually playing? Is it possible to perform at your best self? What do we need in order to get better? So name something that's a truthful statement about what you think the future can hold for you if you truly did your best, and we're playing an infinite game where you intended to win forever. The first step in doing great things is to affirm the belief that great things are possible. We're just getting started. I've seen some of the numbers that are happening, some of the numbers that are happening in Texas, some of the numbers that are happening nationwide, and they're phenomenal. I think this marketplace is revealing that you're either part of a team or you're an endangered species. Because I think you equate what's happening right now in the real estate industry to that of a Coke can. If you take a Coke can and you squeeze it, it's not the top that gets crushed and it's not the bottom that gets crushed. It truly is everything in the middle. When you crush that can, the top stays exactly in place. And if you've ever done that, you've attempted to squeeze the inside of a can, you don't. You get bored, and then what do? Well, you stomp on it, and you still have the top one place, the bottom is one place, and it's been crushed and squeezed together. Now you have a can that looks like this. There is no middle. The real estate industry remains to be seen. It will not surprise me if we see a world with no middle. But if we have an infinite game strategy, a win forever strategy, and we're focusing on being our best, we're going to be on the top of that can and be ultimately untouchable. You get what you do, what you focus on. So write an affirmation describing who you are and what you want to accomplish at work, what your end game or no end game looks like. Some days our affirmation is, I'm going to take over the world. Some days our affirmation is, every day in every way I get better and better. Yes. Gary Vaynerchuk shared an affirmation on one of his podcasts that I absolutely love, because I know it's easy to get drawn into comparing ourselves to others or comparing our insides to their outsides. He has one that I'm using now. My affirmation is, everyone else sucks too. So when we get into the comparison game, or we're having that bad day, we're looking and we think everyone else has got life figured out, it's just us that has the problem, it's just me. They got life figured out. They've got a great family. They got parenting nailed. They're the perfect parent, perfect business owner. Everything they do is perfect. Their hair is perfect. Their body's perfect. No, the reality is everyone else sucks too. We're just be a little less sucky in certain areas and a little better in certain areas. And when you're playing the long game, you obviously already know you can consistently get better and better. So the only competition that matters is the one that takes place within yourself. It's not about external factors. It's just you. You're the one that matters. You're the one that ultimately comes at play, and you're the one that can decide, hey, I'm going to be my best self. So I'm going to send this with you. I know we're out of time, so ask away.
I have a question. So, but we are on these teams. And so we're sitting here, in like an office full of people, and some people are doing so good and some people, are just starting. It's hard to not compare. I know you guys are thinking it, so I'm just going to ask it. What do you see in your coaching clients? Like, how do you overcome that? Right? Like, is it just get clear on what you want and just focus on that? Or what would you say to that?
To me specifically, or are you asking the
Yeah, no, I'm asking you. Yeah, you're the boss today.
That if you've got a mentality of I'm always competing, then you've got a philosophy that says, okay, they're going to be ahead at times, they're going to be behind at times. But what you're doing is you're comparing yourself at a snapshot in time, which is what makes it an unfair comparison. So you know what? They just had a great month. They just had a great week. They are here. They're at a level above where I want to be. Okay. But you're comparing yourself at a snapshot in time. What's that mean 5, 10 years down the road? If you're always competitive and you're always competing and you have an infinite mindset, then they're not your real competition. What their results are is not your real competition. You're competing for something that's so much larger because it's about what you intend to accomplish, what your perfect life is, what your vision of the future holds, has nothing to do with them. And the struggle with a lot of people is when they see somebody that is performing and they're just taking names and kicking ass. And the illusion is that they're firing on all cylinders. We're forced with a decision to make. We see people that are achieving, we see people that are doing exceptionally well, and we've got two choices. Choice number one, go do what they do, focus on the long term, go focus on how I can get better and ultimately get what I want. And it challenges you to raise the bar. It's like if you want to get faster at something, run against somebody who's faster. You want to play golf better, play against somebody who's better than you. You want to improve your tennis game, play against somebody who's better in tennis. That's option number one, is go kick ass. Option number two is find a way to justify why you aren't where they are. Find a way to tear them down to justify, well, you know what, their spouse is a builder, or yeah, but they've got this going on, or I've got this problem and they don't have that problem. And we find a way to justify why we aren't there and how we can make an exception to, rather than go do what it took to get there. We just find a way to, I can get by because they had a leg up. This is what makes them different. I can't do that, don't have that, and therefore we can just stay the same. The comparison can be a very empowering, or it can be a disempowering tool depending upon how you use it.
Okay, I like that.
That's why I like the term, everyone else sucks too. Because you know what? It doesn't matter. It puts me back in control of, I'm going to go do my thing and I'm going to focus on the long term.
I like that. I hope everybody wrote that down. Comparison is a tool, right? It's not the end all be all. It's a tool that, like, absolutely, you are spot on. Like, it's either I get empowered by seeing like Dallas Fort Worth, hitting $1 million so soon in the year. I'm like, holy crap, that's awesome, right? And Valencia, when she scripts, I get empowered by that. I don't think, oh God, I mean, Valencia must have had something, right? So I feel like Valencia's put in a lot of work, and I want to be like Valencia. And I come into it thinking like, and the way you coach, I want to be able to ask those questions. So it can be very empowering, or it can also be disempowering given what you allow it to mean.
It's a great way to put it. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Well, to your point, Drew, yesterday I want to share with everybody, I was talking to a team. This is a team not in Texas. They're a team in the Carolinas. They do about 150 units themselves, right? And so 150 units is a lot of houses to sell, guys, anywhere in the country, right? I know we talk about like big numbers around here, but 150 houses is a lot. And to your point on the Coke can, guess what he said? The reason we were talking that yesterday for was he felt absolutely squeezed in the middle. He felt like there is like no middle ground. It's either you, because he can't innovate fast enough, right? If he's like rewriting his listing presentation, then he's got to go on the listing appointments, then they've got to do the transactions, then he's got to train and coach, and then he's got to do like a million other things, right? Like it's very different from like Ben and Chris putting together the listing presentation, and we just like up our game every few months, right? There's a squeeze in the middle, right? And the game is changing, and the infinite game is important, because at the end of the day, it's not how good Kyla does or how good Jonathan does or DJ or Veronica. It's how good do they want to do based on what they want out of life. And that's going to look very different for Kyla and for Marlene and for Melissa. Like, everybody's got their vision, and it's not a competition. It's just being in the environment that allows us to get whatever we want. Anything you would leave us with, Drew? Like, what are you seeing around the nation, like with like real estate, or anything that you would be like, man, like if you guys started doing this or that, you guys would see some results, or here's what I'm seeing around the nation that is successful, or don't do this, it's not successful. What do you want to leave us with?
I'm going to leave probably something a little bit different is one, the whole point of today was thinking longer term, that, regardless of what's happening in the real estate business today, this isn't new. Disruption isn't new. Technology isn't new. There was a day and time that the real estate community would fear the internet. And then they feared the MLS, and they feared, what's going to happen as we give the consumer. We were the holders of the information. I mean, literally, if you talk to those who've been in business, 25, 30 years, they'll tell you about the book. The book was the MLS. The book was, you printed out what was new, you put it in a book, and you went through, and this is essentially was the MLS. Well, then as technology evolved, are we going to become irrelevant? Well, if we're not a fiduciary, then it's possible. But ultimately, if you're playing the long game and you're around a team, you've got infinite possibilities in front of you. The business is going to be ultimately what you make it. There's going to be some changes that are going to be some happenings. There's going to be some major players that change, some that are going to go away, some new that are going to be added. But if we continue to do a great job and always stay competitive and always compete for the business itself, and most importantly, stay flexible, you will do just fine. I want you to write this down. When communicating with two or more people, whoever is most flexible and passionate will control the outcome. Whenever communicating with two or more people, whoever is most flexible and passionate will control the outcome. It doesn't matter if you're talking to 1 people or 10 people. Choose to be the one that stays most flexible and most passionate while we're going through this transition, this time, this moment, 2021 and beyond. because what I've noticed is we want things to stay the same, so much so that we fight their progress and therefore cause our own demise. We create our own biggest problems. I get it. We want to return to the way things were a year ago. You know, Gary Keller referred to February 2020 as the good old days. That's what, at some point, that's how we're going to refer it. Remember the good old days back in 2019? Oh, that was so cool. Well, the game is changing. It's going to continue to change. It's going to continue to evolve. And if you fight for the way it was, or the way business was done, or the way it used to be done, you're going to be fighting for an era that may no longer exist. Be flexible. Be fluid. Commissions are going to change. Always remember, at the end of the day, market share is most important. Stay competitive. Be a fiduciary. Do the best job you possibly could, and compete against your best self, and you'll do fine.
I love
So
that.
it's been a privilege to be here this morning.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we'll have you on again so you can tell us all the secrets that you're finding from coaching all these people around the country. And I love what you said. Absolutely. Because it's so easy right now with the market so hot, you guys, we can believe our own hype, right? And yet, and also at the same time, we believe our hype. We think we're doing so good. And it's really the market that's doing really good. Let's be super clear on that. And then on the other hand, we're thinking about like what used to be and how times used to be, right? And the answer is like, stay flexible, stay passionate, right? Stay flexible, stay passionate. Next week, guys, we've got Valencia, who's going to be scripting with us. She is our guest host next week. Tomorrow, we've got Chris and Chris. Can't get enough of the Chris's. And I think it's going to be a good conversation tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it'll be awesome. We're wrapping up May. I can't wait to share with you guys the successes that you guys have had. And we're walking into June, which is mid-year, you guys. It's mid-year. So I would take a look at our activities and what those activities have given us in results, right? It's not a quarterly game. We're just checking our progress on this infinite game, right? All right, guys, have a good one. Have a great weekend. Great Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Drew. Bye, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.